Test, test. All right, hello, everyone on the second channel. I'm using my headphones as a mic today because I got to have a fan on because it's so bloody hot in my room. So do a quick stream for an hour. Late one today. I don't know why. I never let the day get away from me this bad, but oh well. But we'll get into sound quality a bit later. Just check everything's okay.
This 39.
Oh, sorry about that. Alright, do the channel. Alright, let me put my glasses on. I'm not liking the screen tonight. There we go. And yeah, just wait for some people to join. Let me just share this on stuff. Streaming now. Just post on my Discord. Join the Discord if you haven't already. Stick in my new videos. Okay. Hopefully everything sounds okay. Don't know why I'm drinking a hot drink when it's so hot. Oh, and like my hay fever has been so bad today, like unbearable. So I apologise for maybe the sound of my voice. What do you call it in America? Allergies? Like, is it just called allergies? Oh god, I should have brought tissues. I'll find some during the stream. Alright, I'm not going to take comments like I normally do for the start of the video or start of the stream. Jimmy is so creepy. Jimmy Dore is trash. Dude, the guy had lost it, and that's why I don't watch Jimmy Dore anymore. We're here. Hello, everyone. Not to mention Lion Grifter. Can TYT be fraud and Jimmy is an angry creep? I mean, of course, two things are possible at the same time. Hot drinks help with digestion. Call it allergies. I'm getting a tissue quick because I'm dying. Okay, I have my lovely tissues. Oh, man. But yeah, like, the weather is so hot in the UK right now. And it's just so hard to make videos because I'm on like the third floor, and it's just like last night was actually okay, but it's meant to be 29 tomorrow. It's 29, and I've got to both exercise, make a video, and I got to go to the dentist as well. Lovely day for it. I mean, I like sunny weather. I'd say like 21 or 22, but like 29 is just too much. Sorry, I just remembered I got a mic next to my mouth, so I'm going to move that. It's hot in South America. What country are you listening from? Yorm. Base Kavernacle, thanks for not siding with fascist. I want to talk about like the Jimmy Dore left and just like why they're so crazy and like I don't know what world they live in. I've got a theory about them, about how their brain has been totally broken by imperialism, and the fact that they seem to think being anti-intervention and being anti-US intervention makes you a leftist or something. So I'm gonna like get into all that stuff because there's a whole legion of them, and like, okay, can someone explain to me why are all these trash people like totally obsessed with Julian Assange? Like, I'm not saying it's not a good cause to be passionate about like getting him released, but why do all these awful people have the same obsession? It's like a really weird, like, to me, it seems like they're all just weird libertarians. Also, how's the sound? I apologise for it now. I'm not going to change it unless you want to hear a fan for like an hour. But I'm just using my headphone mic. Does it sound okay? Hopefully, you can't hear the fan because that's the whole point of me wearing it in the first place. So, but yeah, I'll wait for more people to get in before we talk about the drama. But yeah, outing yourself as like a creep to try and own like one of your old colleagues is probably one of the weirder things I've seen someone do on their massive YouTube channel. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Sounds fine. Okay, great. Also, while we're waiting to get started a bit longer, is there any good topics for a video? I'm not talking about like newsy topics. Is there any like topics you can think of that like I could cover lately? I've got one for tomorrow, but I'm still a bit like I've been trying to make this video for like a couple of weeks now. I'm still a bit like hesitant to make it. I think sometimes I hold myself to too much of a high standard, and sometimes I'm just like, just make the video. Like, it doesn't have to be the best video on the subject ever. Just make it. So I want to talk about like Matrix and V for Vendetta, basically how like the right wing completely missed the meaning of this stuff and just adopt the symbolism from it, like red pilling and V for Vendetta is an obvious one with the Guy Fawkes mask. Um, but I want to just like that's the one, and then I don't know if there's more like right wing stuff like Snowflake. I was thinking of, but then it's a bit like contentious if Fight Club actually invented Snowflake in the first place. Um, cover Comics Gate. The only thing I like, Johnny, is like I'm really at the moment because I have a copyright strike on my channel. I'm really trying to avoid getting another one. So I don't. You guys probably haven't noticed, but I haven't really been including clips from other channels at the moment because I'm afraid of that. I think with a Comics Gate thing, because I'm making a video on The Last of Us Part 2 anti SJW reaction like a year later. I'm doing that on Friday. Um, but although I've covered that a lot in the past with clips of other channels, I'm probably not going to do that, sadly, because I would love to. So I don't think I could cover the Comics Gate stuff without including videos of other people, which I'm just not going to do at the moment, unfortunately. Um, yeah, the Matrix one. The thing is, I haven't watched Matrix in so long. I mean, I can just obviously read about it. So yeah, we'll see. Hi, Katie. Thanks for joining. How's your week been? Or 5 days since the last stream? Got a chill listening to Jimmy Dore talk about harassing Ana. Yeah, like I couldn't actually believe someone would out himself as like a sex pest to try and own like someone in an argument. Like it's so crazy that if if I had somehow gotten away with doing what he did, I would both never want anyone to ever learn about it and hope the person I did it to would never talk about it. He was lucky enough that no matter how much he's been harassing her on his own channel, she's never brought it up. And then he just brings it up. Like, it's the craziest thing. Like, he seems totally unhinged. And the reaction of the guy who he brings on to talk about it straight away afterwards. Um, Hi, Kavernacle. Hi, I don't know what your name would be. Let's call you wrong neighborhood. Anyone from Coventry? I doubt it. But hi from Coventry. Are you a student, Harry? To be up at 3 a.m. Um, make a video on Tom Clancy games. Yeah, Pizza Pasta Cat. That is not a bad idea at all. Like that's totally like up my alley. But I just haven't played a Tom Clancy games since I've been more politically aware. Like I like Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare on the Xbox 360 and Rainbow Six Vegas. Um, Wildlands is like okay, but the politics are kind of weird. So I don't know. Did TYT help you get into leftism? Funny thing is, actually, they actually did, and basically I've been purging a lot of my social media because I've suddenly got really paranoid about getting doxxed and stuff. So I was like, oh, I've got to go back and like delete old YouTube accounts and stuff like that. So I was just like looking at one of my old YouTube accounts, not like named after anything to do with me, just a random one, and just looking at like all my liked videos and like comments I'd left and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I used to love TYT. I used to, I had comments on like the Rubin Report before like he went to be a conservative. I had comments on like all their channels talking about stuff and fighting with people in the comments. And yeah, so I'd say they've been good. Like TYT for me, I think I made a video about them like breadpinning me, but I think they were very good at like exposing me to like a lot of left leaning messages. I wouldn't say like obviously like I don't think Cenk is like some sort of socialist or anything like that, but I think they are like very valuable. Like if you have like an older relative, if you had to pick them to listen to some sort of news, you'd rather them listen to TYT news than like nearly everything else as like a mainstream sort of like news source. So yeah, it definitely helped me for sure. And a lot of them, I feel like I was thinking this today, like Ana Kasparian specifically, I feel like has had an evolution in her politics that's like kind of similar to mine in the sense that like you can see her get like through everything getting more like left leaning stuff. And of course, like she's on the Jacobin, she does loads of stuff with them now. So it's clear it's been a bit of a journey because a lot, Cenk and her used to say like they're a big capitalist and shit like that. I don't think she would say that anymore. So I'd say she's obviously one of the better people on it. Like I like her a lot, and like I like, I actually bookmarked something because I thought like I need to read about this TYT union stuff, because I strangely haven't really read about it. So I bookmarked something to read later. But yeah, I like him as like, don't think he's like the best person ever. Some of his takes are really weird, but I think he's like important in general on YouTube, like this massive YouTube channel that has all this progressive stuff. But also, they have given us Jimmy Dore, Michael Tracy, and Dave Rubin. So that's one thing. I'm just gonna finish my drink quick. But yeah, we'll get into it in a sec. Couple more minutes. Take some more comments quick. Um, it's important to watch TYT's response to their channel. I'm gonna watch that later. I haven't watched it yet. TYT helped sustain my sanity during the Trump years. Yeah, they were good for everything. Anna and John are incredible. Cenk is a tool. Yeah, I like Anna a lot more than the others. John's fine. I don't think he really gives his opinion too much. Like I know he's like left wing and stuff, but if you ask me what I knew he thought on certain issues, I really couldn't tell you that much in terms of just like more general left wing positions. Um, Michael Brooks pushed Anna to the left. Yeah, they became like good friends. I never really like TYT is the only YouTube like politics I really watch. Like even today, I'll throw it on sometimes if there's like a story I want to know about. Um, do I like Howard Stern? I've really never ever listened to him. So slightly off topic. What are your opinions? Okay, I was talking about this on Twitter. Let's have a bit of a conversation while we just wait a couple more minutes to start talking about the Jimmy Dore stuff. All right, so basically, there's this drama going around that WB in this like Harlequin animated show, there was going to be a scene of Batman basically basically eating out Catwoman, and they weren't allowed to do it because apparently Batman doesn't do that. And then there was like a big conversation about it, like on Twitter, and people were saying like, is this like a taboo thing? Do people just not do this or talk about this stuff? So then like I was thinking, someone else posted on Twitter saying this stuff, and I said like I was joking about The Sopranos because remember in Sopranos that thing of Uncle June where he does it and then he tells his girlfriend not to tell anyone, and she tells someone, and then everyone finds out, and they're all like making fun of him. Um, but then someone was like, "Is this like taboo?" And I said, "In my life, I always thought it was like normal and stuff. Like, but I've never had. I don't know. Girls might have this image. I never really talked to my friends who are guys about like sex stuff. Um, so like, I've never really asked them like, is this something you do? I just assumed it was like, obviously, like in like a sexual relationship, you have the dynamic of like, if you do something for someone, then you like reciprocate that. I thought that was always like pretty normal. But then I realized, like, when I spoke to one of my friends lately, and then he was talking about like him and his girlfriend having like sort of problems with that stuff, and I was talking to him about it, and I was realized like most, like, even in countries that are more liberal, we're always taught about like sex from a man's point of view, and it's all about like man's, because obviously men control when it like basically finishes and ends, pretty much for most men, unless you got like some great like reload rate or something. But it's obviously all centered around the man and like his pleasure and stuff. So then I'm wondering, am I just super naive that like this isn't actually common for men to do, and it is a taboo? Like, is this Sopranos mindset like still a thing? I don't know what anyone else in the chat thinks. Like, I don't know. For me, it's a bit weird as well because I've only had like two partners in my whole life, and one when I was a teenager, and I've been going out with my current girlfriend since I was 17. So I've only had two girlfriends overall in that way. So then I was just thinking, like, is the world actually like Sopranos? Like, if I told someone this, would they like actually think it's weird? And like I said, I always thought, and I think like the exposure to things like um, porn and everything, I thought that would make it a lot more normalized as well because we have such an access to it now that it's kind of hard to like not have this stuff in your face. Okay, Blake saying nobody I know has ever considered it taboo. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then, like, this whole discourse about Batman doing it to Catwoman, it was like really strange. I was like, is this like actually like a taboo thing still? I was thinking not, but like obviously, with when you're like a leftist and stuff, it's like you're obviously more in circles that are pro sex work. So a lot of this stuff is very normalized. Like that's why it was surprising for things that people saying like they wouldn't ever do it. And like I'm saying, is it like the Sopranos mindset that like your Uncle June, very progressive man since he was a lot older than the rest of it. Um, I grew up in the Jehovah's Witness cult, and they're not allowed to do that. That is so strange. Like specifically, it's illegal. Yeah, I have read that before actually. They were worried about Batman's image. That is really weird. I thought it was ridiculous when it happened in Sopranos, but apparently it's legit. Yeah, that is very strange. It is a funny episode, but like it is still strange as well. Uh, I hate doing it. I mean, like it's fine. Like in the moment, I'm down for I'm down for it, of course. Um, but I mean, if you don't like doing it, I wonder if your girlfriend doesn't like like doing it to you. I think girls have it a lot harder in that regard and stuff. I eat pussy every day. That's nice to know. Hero. Nate saying, I don't get that either. Like in True Romance, I ain't never eaten no motherfucking pussy, and if I did, I'd be ashamed as a motherfucker. Who says that? Is that Samuel Jackson's character at the start? Um, that's a good movie though. I don't eat cat. Well, that's a shame. Yeah, what about Batman? Yeah, Batman basically in the cartoon he. I don't know what the fuck cartoon this is, by the way. Okay, we're talking about Jimmy Dore, but I was just talking to people to start with. Basically, there's a cartoon people just joined. There's a cartoon that was meant to show Batman eating out Catwoman. It's also a show I think where Harley Quinn has sex with Nightwing, and apparently they cut it because Batman doesn't do that. And then I was talking about there's people talking about on Twitter like, is this like a taboo thing still? And I was pretty surprised. I'm like, I've never ever considered that taboo, like in the last 10 years or whatever. Um, so that's what we're talking about. I think the guys saying it just don't answer. Yeah, maybe. Um, yeah, the thing is, why I thought it was so weird about it being taboo, I was like, because of like the internet, it's such like an extreme, like you get exposed to such extreme like sex acts. It seems so like tame in comparison. So that's why I thought it was so normal. Maybe I'm just like a sick fuck, like, and I've just seen too much shit in my time. But like, I always thought like it's one of the more like tame things. It's actually like, I thought like first is it first, second, or is this third base? I don't even know. Like I've never done it like that. But it's like I thought it's like an equal part, and then you get to like the act itself, and then obviously there's extra stuff you can do. But I thought that's just like a normal progression. It's like kissing, hands, mouth, and then doing it. I thought that's like a thing that's like pretty common for everyone. Isn't that why it's like cool all the bases and stuff? So it's yeah, again, loads of people have like taken too much inspiration from Sopranos, I guess. Misogyny, yeah, it is like a misogynist thing as well. Like I was saying, like the way I never had sex ed in school, like ever. I went to Catholic school. Apparently the girls did, but the boys didn't. And obviously, apparently it's really bad because my auntie is like a nurse at like one of those clinics that treats like diseases you get from that stuff. She said it's really, really bad, like how poor the education is of young people. I don't even want to read out some of these comments, but it's funny. um, Imagine thinking going down on Catwoman is crazy. Yeah, I think they just it was like a weird image. Apparently, they said it's not like a bad thing, so they do loads of weird stuff in the show. Yeah, Katie, that's such a weird thing. It's toxic masculinity. It's like you're emasculated as a man for making your partner feel good and actually being good at like sex and stuff. Like that's emasculating. If you're a man, you should just do it for yourself when you're done, and that's it. I mean, I always say this shit to like the friends that brag about how good they are. I'm always like, yeah, like best 2 minutes of your life and stuff. I bet she loved it. But yeah, like we have such a poor education about this stuff. I would obviously like it to be more like, yeah, fellas is a gay to please a woman. Yeah, exactly. Um, all right, so okay, I guess we've kind of set the scene with uh, other shit like that. So okay, let's move to Jimmy's Dore stuff. So I'm gonna pull the chat down now because I'm just gonna talk for a bit. All right, I'm gonna see if I can play it, but because I'm talking from my headphones, there was a problem last time where I couldn't listen and you guys could listen at the same time. Um, so basically, Jimmy Dore, I'm going to talk about this whole shit, right? So Jimmy Dore has been talking about TYT loads in the last couple of years, right? I think his brain has like officially melted into mush or something. First of all, I don't really like him because like you're shitting all over people who were meant to be your friends and literally made your career as like this YouTuber. Um, and I mean, you can call people out, but he's super toxic about it. So that's one problem I have with him. Like, you can have massive disagreements and not be like a total asshole as well, like he is. Um, all right, so there's loads of shit in here. So all right, so all right, so Jimmy Dore constantly made comments about how sexy he found Ana Kasparian at work, right? So Anna says, I'm sure you remember when you constantly made inappropriate comments about how sexy you found me at work, and even felt the need to ask me where I shop for my jeans so you can buy a pair for your wife, so she dresses better. That was followed by an apology card you wrote for me.
Last DM.
Degrading harassment. For degrading harassment, I've been holding back, letting you run your mouth non-stop, as if you're some sort of warrior for what's good in the world. That's going to change. So not that like I can't say I'm surprised at this stuff, but he's obviously like pretty unhinged, and it feels like really misogynistic. So here's Francesca Fiorentini. So you might have seen her on TYT a lot. The time the working class hero Jimmy Dore DM harassed me from his vacation. This is true in Venice. I had asked him politely to not call a journalist in Syria Al Qaeda. Folks, there are plenty of left pundits with far better politics. Get you one of those. So he said, "What are you afraid of if you have if you have truth on your side? You don't have truth on your side. That's why you're going to dodge defending your lies. And that's finally know who you really are. Someone who disagrees with you, don't troll me, dude. We can get a coffee. Don't troll you. Does anything come out of your head besides bullshit? You're a gutless fucking liar. And if you had any integrity or dignity, you'd come on my show and try to back up your bullshit. Public's mirroring of me, but you don't have any integrity or dignity, and you're a fucking liar. And I snapped you out. Here comes the excuse of why you can't come on my show. Above is the reason I now most certainly won't go on your show. Congrats on your success, Jimmy. I think you're a decent man. I think you're a fucking liar and a page chill. And I'm going to out you. Let me know if you want to grab that coffee. You don't have any integrity, dignity, and you're a fucking liar. That's not. Oh, sorry. It's messed up screenshots. Look forward to your next bullshit excuse of why you can't back up on your tweet and come to my show. Here comes the excuse why you can't come to my show. So yeah, this guy seems like a debate bro, but that he's like pushing 60. Why is he harassing her to come on his show? Like, I don't understand. And why it's so misogynistic is like he's annoyed by this woman and general women disputing what he's saying. So he's like, "I'll come on my show so I can debate you, right?" And I was thinking this as well, like, and I doubt if Anna went on his show or something like that, I doubt there'd be like an impartial moderator doing this debate. It would just be him yelling at this person, right? So that's unhinged shit as well. And he even admits it. Like, I wrote her a card saying, "Sorry, that was inappropriate. You don't have to worry about it happening again. I won't comment on your clothes anymore." Um, so then he's saying loads of shit like, just look, even the Daily Stormer is defending him. Now there's a whole like, I'd say it's like people call it Red Brown. Is that what they call it? Red Brown Alliance or whatever. Um, so then Emma's saying Dore's unhinged rhetoric about AOC is clearly due to an undercurrent of misogyny. This is also apparent in his treatment of the crew, and of course Ana Kasparian. Even his admitted behaviour is abhorrent. Here's the true story. So wow, she tweeting about this as well. Now this guy is like, and this guy Aaron Marte as well, and the Grey Zone. I'm going to talk about this for a bit for a second, and I've always had this problem with these guys. Not specifically these, like Kim Iverson is Iverson. She's another one. People seem to think that being being anti-interventionist in American foreign policy somehow makes you a leftist. And what these guys do is they do not criticize people like Assad and Putin for like being these monsters. They simply always criticize the US, right? And you guys, especially people who've watched my channel for a long time, you know that like I'm just like anti-authoritarian. Um, I'm anti-NATO, for example. I've explained in the past Russians' foreign policy, in my opinion, is like more an extension of like Cold War foreign policy of like buffer zones from the West and like NATO aggression and stuff. Um, so I'm totally willing to listen to people talking about like imperialism, US imperialism. I feel like the Western obsession with Syria is more driven in a lot of ways by Russia being and Iran being big friends with Assad, and of course it gives Russia like a warm water port in the Middle East and stuff. So that is something, you know, that I'm totally willing to have a conversation on, and I'm totally willing to accept. Like I said, I'm against NATO, I'm against Assad, but these guys, I don't get the impression they're actually against Assad and Putin like passionately, because I hate Putin and Assad because Putin's someone I know more about in terms of his politics. Right wing nationalism, Christian nationalism. Assad's Ba'ath Party is totally brutal. And I've seen these guys sharing like Syrian government propaganda for years. A big one is from Syria's Christians, because people don't understand. Assad is from a minority sect in Syria. It was a minority sect of Islam that was courted by the French during Syria's like creation and stuff. And Assad's father was very close with the French. Assad speaks French. He went to school in France. French have been in bed with Assad for years, and even as late as the Arab Spring, I was reading my book about it, and it's saying like they feel like they need Assad still. Sometimes the West as like this person, I don't know, sometimes to talk with like the Iranians or other people. But yeah, sharing pictures of like Christians celebrating Assad it's pretty obvious why Christians in Syria like Assad. It's because of like they would rather Assad, who tolerates Christians, rather than ISIS controlling the country. But basically, they made it seem like every opposition um, faction in Syria was just literally Al Qaeda, which is what they still say today. Even though it's extremely complex, of course, like there's a lot of Al Qaeda and Islamic extremism during the civil war and stuff. But these guys feel like they have to like stand, and this is a problem I've seen the left in general. They feel like they have to stand anyone who stands up to Western imperialism. So Assad is good for that, or Putin is good for that because he's telling it like it is. He's standing up to Western imperialism. People saying two cells in the toll cells in the chat. So Tulsi Gabbard's another one like this. So they think anyone who's against Western imperialism is somehow good. This extends to Jimmy Dore and all these people, right? So that's why they're far less critical of Putin. Now, you guys will know as well, if you follow me for a long time, I want Iran to be accepted back into the international community. Doesn't mean I like the government of Iran or I think they're great for standing up to the West. What people need to understand sometimes is, the regimes in these countries are reactions to Western colonialism historically, and the only way to get them to relax and become part of the international community is relax our restrictions, relax our hostility towards them. That's why I want Iran to join the international community. If the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia are like key pillars of the international community, there's no reason Iran can't be as well. It's similar with North Korea. Like I'm reading about the potential famine they're going to have. I'm like, so many civilians are going to die. Why can't we just help these people? Why do we? Why can't the thing with Trump before? Why can't that actually be like a legitimate thing to try and like normalize more relations? And as we've seen, like if you read about Mao's China in the 1960s, there are a lot of parallels with North Korea today. It's probably not as bad, but like there are some parallels there. And China was allowed to like join the international community eventually as well, and other countries like Vietnam were, and like there are countries I respect a lot more for their anti-imperialism, like Vietnam or Cuba, but these guys seem to like, and that's because obviously these are countries founded by socialist revolutionaries, and although they're not perfect systems because they're authoritarian and stuff, I respect it a lot more because they've done a lot of good with the resources they've had, which are often limited because Vietnam was under sanctions for 20 years after the war, devastating war, country destroyed by the US. Have a lot of sympathy there for trying to rebuild themselves with a certain system. Cuba's still under embargo. I'm not like a massive stand for the Cuban government, but I'm not going to tolerate really smears against them, like and mischaracterizations of them from like US imperialists. So I understand from an extent wanting to defend certain countries, right? And I've said before, I don't think the US has any moral high ground on Syria, Russia, Iran. I don't think the US even has moral high ground necessarily on China either. But that's just like a consistent worldview because I care about like human rights and people. And while I can appreciate countries like Syria, for example, or other countries like Iran are ostracized often by the international community, doesn't mean I'm suddenly not ever going to criticize Iran and Syria again. And that's what these people, and that's what I'm wondering. Do these people genuinely not have a bad word to say about Assad and Syria? I don't know. Let me know in the chat. Do you think these guys think Putin and Assad are actually good, like, for standing up to the West? Like, they actually like them for standing up to the West? Because that's what I'm confused on. Are they so brainwashed, and has their brains been broken so bad by like Western imperialism that they just don't want to criticize Russia and Assad because they feel like the whole of mainstream media criticizes Russia and Assad, or do they actually like Putin and Assad and just don't want to say it because if they mask off about liking them, then that may alienate like a portion of their audience who, while they hate Western imperialism, they hate Putin as well. So let me know in the comments, do you think these guys actually like Putin and Assad, or they just ignore them to focus on Western imperialism? So it's very like, it's something I've noticed a lot. And Tulsi Gabbard, for example, she's a different case because I think she's also driven by a hatred of Islamicism. So obviously she interviewed Assad, right? And I think, that's whatever. I don't think it's a great look, but it's whatever. I can get past that. But then obviously her being a massive advocate for Modi, even when he was banned from entering the US, and her being like pro Sisi in Egypt, she obviously hates like Islamicism, so she's happy to back authoritarian dictators or fascist people who operate in democracies like Modi in India because she hates Islamicism so much. And it feels like it's a similar thing with these guys, where because they hate the West so much and hate Western imperialism, which is fair enough, they are happy to stand like, you know, the Ba'ath Party in Syria, or I haven't seen as much of like the Ayatollah in Iran. I think that's because these guys probably don't really like Muslims still. Like in terms of Assad's a bit more palatable because Ba'athists are meant to be more secularist, aren't they? And Putin, you know, they probably think like, oh, like what a genius, like leave Russia alone and shit like that. And the difference to me is like, you know, it's just I think it's ridiculous to whitewash the human rights abuses. Like the only guy I hear talking about conspiracy theories with Syria is Jimmy Dore, always trying to like you know apologize to the regime. And then Kim Irvison and Jimmy Dore received some like journalism award for like some shady organization linked to like the Syrian government or like some sort of thing that does propaganda for the Syrian government. I made a video on it like 2 years ago. Um, and it's because they push this narrative, and it's a very like that's why I never understand it. That's why I prefer like if I have to choose like TYT or Jimmy Dore, I choose TYT all the time because at least they're fairly consistent. Where like Jimmy Dore makes like loads of videos about the Israeli government and stuff and how bad they're treating the Palestinians, which is good. But he's not gonna. But he didn't make any videos about Assad treating his population bad. In fact, he did the opposite where he started saying that all the war crimes Assad did were basically Western conspiracy theories. And these guys are like, is it like the Joe Rogan to libertarian left pipeline or some shit? Like, I don't even consider these guys leftists, where they think everything is orchestrated by the CIA and it's all just done to just justify Western imperialism. So Assad, if there's any reporting on Assad doing war crimes, that just must be a CIA operation to make the US get into war with Syria. Now, I reckon, but here's the thing with being nuanced. I recognize, and I've been speaking to people about this before, I recognize the role the Western press plays. And I literally wrote my master's thesis on how the New York Times framed the Gulf War as like World War II. They basically painted Saddam Hussein as Adolf Hitler and made it seem like to its readership they had to fight in the Gulf War or it would literally be like World War II in 10 years. So I literally, you know, I know from studying this stuff and writing like a whole thesis on it that the media are often complicit in getting countries on board with war. But then I also know, for example, sometimes the CIA have used made up stories and pushed them on the media. But then what sort of reality can you live in where basically you don't believe anything anymore? Like you can't believe that Assad did war crimes. And the funny thing is, this guy will believe his mate Aaron Marte, whatever his name is, when he's saying about like Assad's not that bad, or his other mate, whoever that guy is, who says Syria has fair elections. I don't know if you saw that video. I don't know what this guy's called. He wears like the scarf, and he was talking about like the recent election in Syria being like legit or some shit like that. And I'm like, I was watching loads of videos. Like this is like one of the most shambolic elections I've ever seen. Um, where Assad's like getting like 95 to 98% of the vote, and his dad used to get 100% of the vote. Are you fucking joking me? But so these guys will happily believe that Assad can't do war crimes, that Assad won the vote like fairly in a free democracy. But if the Western press reports on Assad doing something bad, then that's a CIA conspiracy theory. So it's like these guys live in their own constructed reality. And like I said, with Jimmy Dore platforming like Boogaloo and shit like that, he platformed that guy because the guy was anti-interventionist. And this is how, and this is why, you know, that Scott Cawthon stuff yesterday. This is why, you know, a hardcore Christian, like fundamentalist like him, donated to Tulsi Gabbard. Fascists love anti-interventionist shit. And they love this rhetoric, and they love people like Jimmy Dore. That's why the Daily Stormer is reporting on this stuff. Because, and I'm not saying this is like necessarily Jimmy Dore's fault and stuff, in terms of the Boogaloo stuff his fault, but in terms of this rhetoric, they like it because why they like it is because it is easier for people to believe that both Israel and Jewish people control American foreign policy if you speak like these guys, right? If you talk about Syria in this way, and you talk about Iran in this way, and you talk about how it's basically the US is doing the bidding of Israel. It's very. That's why the Nazis love this shit, and with Tulsi Gabbard as well. It's anti-interventionism. It's not anti-war. Anti-war is when you're like, physically opposed to violence. Like, if you're anti-war, like Tulsi Gabbard, you wouldn't support Modi and what he's doing in Kashmir. If you're anti-war, you wouldn't support Assad. You wouldn't stand these awful people. If you're anti-war, you wouldn't like Putin, for example. But these guys aren't anti-war, but anti-intervention, and they don't want to like waste American lives, waste money, and then that's why fascists often like people like this, because it's easier to make people believe that it's Israel controlling US foreign policy, which is pretty ridiculous, right? Because it assumes that Israel, and this is obviously the anti-Semitic part, it assumes that Israel are controlling the US, when, of course, if you know about the history of the US and Israel, the US didn't like Israel for like 20 years until the Six Day War, when they were fighting the Vietnam War, and Johnson saw how effective the Israeli military was and thought, we don't need to get involved in fights against communism and Soviet-backed Arab states, we can back Israel instead. That's what Johnson saw with Israel. But before then, it's primarily backed by the British and the French. But the US like Israel as a partner in the Middle East. So it doesn't necessarily always have to get involved in stuff. Like Israel constantly attacks its neighbors. It attacks Syria, Iran, it attacks Iraq back in the day. The US doesn't need to do that, and it can, stand by and let Israel conduct this more like militaristic foreign policy. But this is what these guys make it seem like to a lot of people, that Israel controls the US. So the US isn't getting involved with Syria because of Israel, and it's because Israel are telling them to do it. Not that like the US is like literally one of the most powerful countries in like human existence. So I think people got to be careful with this anti-interventionist, weird libertarian stuff, because when you're a leftist, this place comes from a value on human life. So it's not hard to be against, US imperialism, but also be against Assad. It's not hard to be against the Iraq war, but also be against the Iranian government or the Russian government. It's really, really not hard to do that, especially if you value human life. And as someone especially doesn't value borders and countries and stuff, it's even easier for me. And especially when you come from a background, sometimes I spoke about being like Irish background. If you've been from a background where people have been colonized and treated like shit as well, you realize the struggle often is the same no matter what. So India is like the US's ally. I don't hear Jimmy Dore talk too much about Kashmir, right? And saying, "Oh, we're enabling this stuff. We sell India weapons," and his buddy Putin. That's the funny thing. Their beloved Putin, poor Putin, he is the biggest funder of the Indian military, who carries out torture and war crimes in Kashmir. Now, if these guys were really anti-war, they wouldn't even like stay quiet on Putin doing this shit as well. So that's what my main point is. These guys, they care about the US. They care about US lives. They care about US intervention. They don't want the US to get involved in Syria. But they're perfectly happy for like war to break out. And the reason people like Jimmy Dore are so hot on the Israel stuff is because they think Israel mainly is enabled by the US, which it is. But that's why they can talk a lot about Israel, but they won't talk a lot about Kashmir or like other stuff happening in the world where the US is also complicit, and countries like Russia are complicit as well. Or like Turkey, or like, the Azerbaijan, Armenia stuff, or more stuff to do with the Kurds and stuff. These guys are like, if it's US adjacent, they'll talk about it. If it's like really in your face, like US and Syria, or Israel and Palestine. But when it's so much, and that's why to me it's so telling, these guys aren't really left wing, they're more libertarians. So they care about the anti war stuff. And can someone please tell me, like, has like the Julian Assange stuff just like totally broken these guys' brain or something? Is that what it is? Because all these guys are massive supporters. But why has Julian Assange's cause, which is exposing US war crimes, why has it been taken up so much by the right? I've seen like weird Trump supporters, like they thought Trump would pardon Julian Assange. And I'm like, Trump and the far right are also the people who would love to kill Julian Assange. And the only reason they like Julian Assange is because he exposed US war crimes, which gives more like ammo to their argument about the US intervention stuff. It's not because Julian Assange is like exposing global war crimes, he's exposing the Indian military. If Julian Assange had filmed the Indian military doing that stuff to Kashmiris, these guys wouldn't give a shit. And that's the fact. They would not give a shit. They wouldn't even talk about it. But it's because, this is why I think, obviously, what Julian Assange, for him as a person, I don't know if I like him too much, but like, obviously, what his crime is essentially really good journalism, exposing US war crimes, brutal US war crimes. Very commendable, and it's obviously war against him is like a war against real journalism, right? But then I'm like, if you're allying yourself with like fash adjacent people for this stuff, it makes me really question why you guys even like this guy in the first place, because you seem to pretty much ignore a lot of other people who do good work while being apologists for the Assad regime and sometimes staying quiet on Putin, who would happily lock up Assange and kill him if he was exposing Russian war crimes. If it's well known that Russia committed numerous war crimes in Syria. Like its bombing campaigns in I think it's 2016 were insane. Like basically, like you think the US is bad, and the thing is, Russia don't do this as much, so I wouldn't compare them too much. But the Russian campaign in Syria really had no regard for human life, right? Not something these guys would really talk about. But if Julian Assange had come out, or if someone else comes out tomorrow and says, "Look, here's a Russian chopper. Look at them shooting all those civilians," I doubt these guys are going to make videos on it. I doubt they'd care if this guy got killed or executed and stuff. So it's just like what people need to understand with people like Jimmy Dore and this like weird Tulsi left, these people who have basically had their brains broken by Western imperialism, so much so they've actually done like a roundabout where they may be an apologist for far right authoritarian regimes across the world, and pretty much staying silent on not only these regimes' own actions, but the stuff they enable internationally. Like I'm talking about the India stuff, like the Russian and Indian collaboration. That's like a massive thing as well. And this is why you guys need to see voices of people whose core politics is caring about human life rather than caring about what the US do. Because if you want to be like a decent person, it's more like that's why I believe more like internationalism and stuff. Is that this stuff, the Palestinian thing hurts me not because the US is involved, not because Britain is involved. That might elevate my concern as a person in this country. Is like I want to affect our relationship with it. But that's why, if it's Western Sahara, if it's Kashmir, if it's Palestine, if it's numerous other places throughout the world, if it's how Kurds are treated in Turkey, if it's how Armenians are treated by, Azerbaijan, people in Azerbaijan. I don't know what you'd use to that. Is it Azerbaijanis? I don't know. That hurts as like a human person, and that's what like I feel like these people are completely missing. Is that the only thing that hurts these guys or angers them is when the US is involved. And if I take this a bit further back, how much does it factor in these guys are only mad because they pay their taxes in the US? Like they feel like they're funding this, right? Which is obviously a bad thing, but is this like a major factor to them? It's because their money is involved and they want it spent on like Medicare for all instead of foreign stuff. I don't know. I wonder what these guys think of like genuine international aid programs, like not like aid to Israel, like proper like aid and stuff. Anyway, so that's my opinion on these guys, and I just say don't be fooled by them. Like, yeah, it's good. Jimmy Dore will cover the Israel stuff, and that's a good thing. But because of how he covers a lot of stuff, I'm very suspect on why he cares about that stuff. Anyway, gonna read your comments now. So let's see. I've missed a lot. I've been talking for a good while. Try to be quick. Name. I've just may have been a complete cunt to one of your viewers. I'm sorry. Name. I can't see him saying anything. Thanks for the donation though. Appreciate it. Um, People think being anti-American intervention is left. Yep, they do. My mum thinks Putin is far left. What the hell? I guess because he's in the KGB. Um, so reading more comments. Kavernacle is a sweetheart, cared about all humans and stuff. Yeah, I am. I don't know if that's sarcastic though. Vietnam and Cuba did well in managing what's happening. Yeah, they did. There are Baptist stands. Yeah, I've had people try and join my Discord who are Baptist stands. It's really weird. They ironically think Assad won 95% of the vote. Yeah, very weird. This will be posted to the second channel. Yeah, it should be. Tulsi Gabbard is a riot in sheep's clothing. Yeah, that's what I said yesterday in my video on Five Nights at Freddy's, if you believe it. Jimmy's just a contrarian. He does feel like that a lot of times. Christina, you are spreading CIA talking points. I support Assad. Okay, Christina, I don't really want Assad supporters following me, so I don't think you'll be missed. And Arab socialism is not socialism. If yeah, you might want to stop watching Jimmy Dore a lot, but yeah, Arab socialism, Baptism isn't socialism. Mo, if you're still here, second channel. It's not that he says positive things about Assad, it's what he says about Syria and doesn't say about Assad. Some really small comments. Tulsi's day one is Modi, yep. That Demi stands haven't shown up yet. They will show up. So the Syrian election was a joke. Yeah, the Syrian election was. No one wins 90. Okay, even if like Assad was like God, like like he was this amazing being who just like um, gave people healthcare, improved the quality of life. I don't even think Fidel Castro, like after the revolution and after they purged like most of the right wingers, would win. Like I don't even think Ho Chi Minh would win like 95% in North Vietnam or something. So to think like Assad in a country that is war torn would win 95% of the vote, even though there's like documented proof of people voting multiple times and people having their votes done for them in front of them. So ridiculous. I don't know what brain rot you have to have to think Assad won 95%. Um, um, Christina Wilding, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, anti-interventionist, not anti-war. Can we oppose Western imperialism without buying obvious bullshit? I hope so. Um, I'm glad you expose yourself as a CIA. See, here's another thing. I want to talk about this because Christina's saying that I'm a CIA apologist. Jimmy Dore often says you're NATO shills. You're apologists for the CIA and America. Why? Why does being against Assad make me pro CIA? Like the CIA has like tortured and kidnapped like thousands of leftists and people who just like student organizers, union organizers, helped like the worst regimes in the world torture these people. The CIA has also like conducted genocidal wars against communists and socialists. To think that I would like them because I'm against Assad is totally insane. It's probably one of the most evil organizations in the world. I already said I was anti-NATO. I don't know how I'm going to be pro-CIA but anti-NATO. I'm not even fucking American for one thing. Yeah, crazy. Like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Why did you even subscribe? I literally made a video on Jimmy Dore like a couple months ago saying how I thought he was full of shit. Like, I don't know. Suddenly, what video made you subscribe to me? And then how do you think I'm some sort of um, like NATO CIA shill? Crazy. Um, Kavernacle is definitely not a CIA apologist. Exactly. Assad is pro human rights. Yeah, just let your Russian allies obliterate whole communities with bombing campaigns. That's very pro human rights. Can I steal your argument? Yeah, go for it. Um, you're unconvinced about what, Rubber Cable? Um, the only reason Assad gets negative media coverage is because he's a socialist. Oh my god, no. Yes, socialist Assad. Baptism, Arab socialism has always been weird, but it's never been about socialism. The point of Arab socialism and like what inspired it was literally uniting Arabs against Israel to destroy like Israel. That is like one of the key things that like helped kick off Arab socialism. It's also like this weird authoritarianism. Um, the only similarities it kind of has with some like authoritarian socialist countries is state-controlled industries. But I wrote an article about because I've actually studied this stuff. I wrote an article about Syria's capitalism. It's literally crony capitalism. It's crony state capitalism and authoritarian crony capitalism. Literally, like it's all about like bribery and like giving like so much of your profits and over to the state, even owning like a little shop and stuff. You weren't even allowed until like 2000. So Christina must be a troll. Come on. Yeah, the Assange thing is just a tool. No one, they don't give a fuck. If he could tie a war crime back to Trump, they'd dump him. A lot of the libertarians would. Um, why are these people dying on the hill for Assad? Tanky exposed, yeah. So read some more comments. Um, all people should hold their own government to account. Yeah, I agree. Russia is India's biggest arms customer because India is scared of getting locked out of supplies of equipment if dependent on the US. I mean, I'm not really like criticizing India necessarily for buying weapons of Russia. I don't really give a shit where it gets the weapons from. But then that means because Russia, its biggest supplier, it's complicit in what it's doing to Kashmir. Oh, sorry, I'm just going up now. I'm a Kazakhstan. That's good. Wait, Kavernacle, are you Vietnamese? No. Do I look Vietnamese? I don't think I did. Uh, Poor Kavernacle is confused about Blue Mago Russiagate propaganda. Russiagate, I don't even want to get started on that. Like their brain was broken by that as well. That's another one. Um, yeah, Heisenberg, agree me. Brain's broken. Sorry, read some more comments. Can't forgive Dore for standing Tulsi and platforming right wingers. Agree. Um, wait, so someone was saying something. Wait, CIA. Um, Bafty booze. Yeah, that okay. That's actually not a bad idea for a video. A sad stance. Kavanagh is Irish. Yep. Um, Arab nationalism is incredibly racist. Yeah, I feel like that as well. Arab nationalism has its roots in Nazism, especially Saddam Hussein's Ba'athism. All my homies hate Assad. Yep. Israel's bombing Gaza again. Yeah, I saw that actually. Like because they sent some balloons, incendiary balloons or some shit. Crazy. It's fucking awful. Um, yeah, it's extremely far. The thing is, like, it's not even subtle. Like, how can you win 95% of the vote? It's like the Vietnam election with Ziem and the Emperor. He won like 90. The UN. This is so funny. So the old like dictator of South Vietnam, when he took over, the US said to him, like, promise us free and fair elections. And he goes like, fuck you. I win 90. He's like 92% of the vote or something. He's literally running against like the Emperor, and he's saying he won 92% of the vote. I have to see more lefties called like Dore. Yeah, I don't consider him left wing at all. He's a weird libertarian. Good to see you again, man. Hey, Progressive American, thanks for joining. Um, yeah, Israel's working the ceasefire. Yeah, it seems like it. Mike, I'm gonna post this on my second channel, the Kavernacle Extra. It's in the description, or is it not? Oh, you might just have to type it in. I probably need to put it in my description. Wait, is it? My podcast subreddit. Oh shit, I didn't. It's not in my description. It's a big oversight. I need to read a book about Tito. He was pretty like fucking crazy. Like in terms of like fighting in World War One, then like in like a revolutionary guerrilla group in World War Two, and then leader of like the only big like anti-Stalin communist country as well. Fucking Busker saying, "Am I looking forward to my next chocolate orange?" I actually haven't. I wouldn't fucking eat these now because my orange is so hot. I actually haven't bought a new one. Hopefully, I get it to after I upload my video tomorrow. I hopefully will get the last couple subs. I think I need like 40 more. Who knows how many subs I would have lost from streaming this? Do I have loads of Christinas in my fan base? Um, uh, you need to watch more Jimmy Dore, Richard Medhurst, and the Grey Zone. Yeah, Richard Medhurst, that's the guy who was saying Assad's win was legit. Oh, thanks so much, Katie, for the donation. Israel's bombing Gaza again, solidarity. Yeah, like, you think with the new government, obviously the guy who's just come in as a new leader of Israel is technically worse than Netanyahu, but you'd think because it was a coalition government, maybe there'd be some hope. Doesn't really seem like it, which is really shit. All you could do is just keep talking about it, I guess. Hopefully, like the recent events has probably hopefully changed it for the better, like permanently, but we'll see what happens really. So I'm just reading more comments. Netanyahu wasn't right wing enough, perhaps not. The CrossFit booze, yeah, I need to do that one. Um, China's. Why do I keep calling things glory? Yeah, that's fucking Christina. What are you doing? Uh, See, Christina, here's my problem. This is like you're a perfect example. If you're actually called Christina, um, you think that because China is doing something, and it's against like the IMF and World Bank, like I. That's the thing. Like, you calling me CIA apologist is that I've talked so much about the World Bank, CIA, let's say World Bank and IMF and how they trap countries in like um, these privatized economies. Basically, part of the criteria for even getting the money from them is you've got to privatize your economy, which just often just creates a horrible oligarchy. It happened in Russia after the fall of the USSR. Went in, it's called shock therapy. Type in Russia shock therapy if you want to read about this. Basically, went in, pumped Russia full of money, but privatized the economy. Russia in the 1990s was so much worse than the USSR even in its last years. It was like something like 50% unemployment, 50% like child poverty or some shit. It was absolutely mental. Like the West literally destroyed Russia and they're responsible, the IMF and World Bank, for Putin and the rise of Putin and getting behind this strongman because Western economics destroyed Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union. Made it a far worse place to live even during like the last days of the Soviet Union. So China doing like all these economic initiatives, China might throw a bit of money around to some of its African allies and stuff, but to think that China is just benevolent and doing this, and this is what I always talk about this stuff with China, right? China has an ideology, um, the ruling class in China, of nationalism, Han Chinese nationalism, and it's rooted in this mythology about China, where China used to be 2,000 years ago the most powerful country in the world. China is one of the oldest countries in the world, like its borders are it's one of the oldest countries in the world, like for sure. And they believe it's like I think it's called the Mandate of Heaven or some shit. It's there, and it's called like the Middle Kingdom. So the China is in the middle of the world. It's the center of the world, or it used to be, and it's the duty of Chinese people now to get it back to that. And that's why Chinese nationalism is weird, because Mao tried to like go back away from the Chineseness of like his regime, obviously destroying loads of historical sites and stuff like that. He wanted to get away from that stuff, where Deng Xiaoping and his people who followed him went way more into the Chinese stuff, like the Chinese history. So China want to become like the main superpower, and people in China who get by into this nationalism want that as well. Everything they're doing is not about like raising the world out of poverty for socialism. I don't buy it at all. I'm not like, I believe, I'm not like one of these red scaremongers. I believe there's so much fear mongering about China, like in video games, in entertainment, acting like that China is insidiously taking over entertainment to promote its agenda, when it's like, no, like Western corporations are selling out because China's an emerging economy and they want the money. It's not that China has got its hands in everything because that's just what they're doing and they're like subversive communists and all that shit. But China is totally exploiting a capitalist system to make itself more powerful, and I don't believe China really gives a shit about like African peoples who were colonized by the West, or suffered from neo-colonialism of the IMF. Um, if you study international relations and you buy into this ideology called realism, which is about how states at the top levels act without morality, and it's all about power, which is something I generally believe, then stuff like the China and the US, you got to think about foreign policy as a game. It's not about morality to either of these people, and there's a lot of nationalism involved. I'd say for the US, it's more about capitalism. I'd say about China, it's more about nationalism and power. Obviously, all that stuff factors in for all countries, but I think the US is far more driven by capitalism than China. Like, that's the one difference I'd say. I'd say the US is driven more by capitalism. Like they do this for capitalism in a lot of ways. While I feel China, because of its system of government, often uses capitalism to make itself more powerful. But in its pursuit of this power, it's not that it cares about people like the US doesn't care about people. And that's, Xi Jinping doesn't like the billionaire class in China, but that's like well documented. He doesn't like them, but he wants to use them to like elevate China's global image, make China more powerful. That's like a perfect symbolic thing for you to like to grasp the situation in China. The leader doesn't like the billionaire class, but he'll use them, and that's basically what China's goal is, to become this more powerful country. And lots of Chinese people do buy into this stuff. That's the only differences I would say about them. Although I'd say both don't really give a shit about colonized people or like doing neo-colonialism. I'd say China is going to be just as guilty as that, in the next 50 years than the US is. And China has the ability to do this stuff, where a country like Russia doesn't really have the power and capability to do neo-colonialism like the US and China can do. Obviously, it does in like places like, it's really complicated in Russia because of the USSR stuff. But like if it's strictly classed as colonialism or not, like would you class um, mainland China's aggression against Taiwan as colonialism? I'm not sure whether that really fits, because obviously Taiwan used to be part of China and was only separated by like Chiang Kai-shek and the US and stuff. So yeah, I don't really know about that stuff, if it's like strictly colonialism. But like obviously I support like self-determination for people who want it. So I don't support Taiwan becoming part of communist China, despite recognizing like historically it does kind of suck um, how it was separated from China. But if Taiwanese people don't want to be part of that system, what am I going to tell them? You got to be part of it, even if you don't want to. All right, read some more comments. Progressive America, good to see left wing content creator critiquing authoritarianism in other countries while still holding America accountable. We need more voice like yours, man. Thanks so much, Connor at the Progressive American. Yeah, if you're anti authoritarianism, that really shouldn't be hard, but people find it hard. But also, like, I'm anti authoritarianism in general, right? But I also recognize certain systems, like, okay, like Vietnam and stuff and Cuba are authoritarian to some degree, but authoritarian is there's different degrees of authoritarianism. So the US and UK have degrees of authoritarianism in them. Um, the US is worse than the UK for authoritarianism in terms of like police brutality. Um, is one good example, and then Vietnam has a flip side where it doesn't have heavily militarized police brutalizing people, but of course has authoritarian aspects on like one party system. It does have some sort of democracy, like you can vote for candidates, but it's a one party system. Limits to information, although if you know much about Vietnam, you know a lot of people there just use VPNs and it's really not a big deal. Um, but yeah, there's different strains of authoritarianism. So Vietnam, the police there are not going to run into a neighborhood with tanks and start shooting gas at people in like their hundreds. But yeah, there's other things there. So, but the thing is, the thing with like Assad is that it's such like clear authoritarianism, and it's very very repressive. Like Iran, Saudi Arabia, they're like more extreme forms of authoritarianism. Then you got like more European forms like Hungary and Russia, which is very authoritarian, but it's not the same as like Assad or Iran. And then you have countries like maybe Cuba and Vietnam. I'd say Cuba's a bit more authoritarian than Vietnam, but like yeah, there are different aspects to it. So I'm of course more for self determination, democracy, and stuff. But generally like anti-authoritarianism to most degrees. I mean, that's the interesting argument at the moment is that how do you deal with misinformation? How do you deal with health stuff when there's so much misinformation going around in these free speech democracies? Um, so, fuck, man, it's too hot in the UK. um, okay, Christina must be a troll. Listen to this. China is actually a force for good. They are selfless. It's just unthinkable because all the large capitalist countries do imperialism, but China doesn't. I think Christina is a troll, like, to be honest. Um, my Taiwanese friends would lose their mind if someone told them it was a part of China. I can understand why people say that, of course, because you know, if you think about the founding of Taiwan, it's first taken by the Japanese in the first Sino-Japanese War. So obviously that's a big deal. It's a country. It's an island essentially taken by their arch enemy, and then after the Communist Revolution, after the Japanese give it back to China, the nationalists flee there, and Chiang Kai-shek sets up his government. So essentially, you have the enemies of and the oppressor historically in the last like 20 years there sets up his own island country with the backing of the US. So I totally understand why Chinese communists absolutely hate like the Taiwanese government and think Taiwan should be a part of China. Like I understand that completely, but time has gone on. It's a relatively, it's a bit authoritarian, but it's a relatively stable and free democracy. And the nationalists have been voted out, Chiang Kai-shek's party, and if these people don't want to become part of mainland China, these are generations of people now who've grown up outside of the Chinese government system, having their own government. So then, they're not recognized by a lot of countries as like a legit country. But yeah, if these people don't want to become part of China, I don't blame them really, and I support their own self determination. Um, I read some more stuff. Well, it's official policy of the U.S. government that Taiwan is a part of China. Most countries believe Taiwan's a part of China. It's called the One China policy. It's how they normalize relations. Nixon started it. The way the media treated Jeremy Corbyn was a disgrace. Yeah, I totally agree. Christina, how can you not be sure if China's one party? It literally is one party. Yeah, the US isn't a free country. Like I said this before, that there's the argument like between sometimes I was arguing with someone who was saying about how shit Vietnam was and how it's so backward and they should get rid of the Communist Party. That's one of my friends who's like very liberal was saying this stuff, and he was saying like, oh, you can't criticize the government, and I was like, that's a fair enough point, but then sometimes you can't have a perfect system. You got to choose what you value. So in the US, you can buy a gun. You can buy many guns. You can go on a street corner and say whatever the fuck you want. You can tell the government to go fuck itself. You can do all that stuff allegedly and not go to prison, even though there's been cases where people obviously do go to prison for this stuff. But you're also not guaranteed healthcare. So if you get sick and you don't have healthcare and you're not on is it Medicaid is for poorer people, um, there's a chance you'll die. And even if you have insurance, there's a chance it won't cover most of it and you'll go bankrupt. So you can play the game you're sold, you can work hard your whole life, save your money, pay into your mortgage, pay into your pension. One day that could all be destroyed because you're just hit by a car and something really bad happens. And is that real freedom? Um, I was talking with, he's probably not here, someone on Bad Praxis, the Twitch stream. He was saying he won't get a better job because if he gets a better job, he'll lose his healthcare coverage on Medicare or Medicaid or whatever one I'm talking about. How is that freedom? And you can't even climb this like capitalist ladder. So obviously in Vietnam or like even in the UK at the moment, hopefully it stays that way for a long time. You don't have to worry about the cost to your health. And sometimes what I was trying to explain to my friend is Vietnam is a country that was completely ravaged by war. If you provide most people with education, housing, and healthcare, but they can't criticize the government and have freedom of speech like in the West, then what do you think they will choose? And of course, in an ideal world, we'd have all those things and we'd live in a nice democracy and we'd have the freedom to say what we want and vote for who we want and get the best candidates and stuff. And wouldn't that be lovely? But I think it's quite like a liberal Western mindset to be like, this country is bad because it doesn't have the same values on free speech and like freedom that we have. But at the same time, it seems to care about the general health of its population a lot more in that it will make sure kids like get healthcare or there's poor people can get housing and stuff. And that's like even if we talk about the Soviet Union, for example, if you're talking about the Soviet Union compared to like Imperial Russia, it's clear like the Soviet Union does a lot of good things in terms of education and housing and healthcare and things like that. And that's like good things you can recognize. While at the same time, you can recognize how the Soviet Union, especially in the 1930s to about the 1950s, was like batshit insane under Stalin. But then, like, sometimes people are a bit disingenuous about the Soviet Union in the 60s and 70s, where it was like relatively, in terms of the whole world, a good place to live for people. But then, of course, you got to ask yourself, for a lot of people, like for someone like me, freedom of speech is, of course, very important. It's like my whole job at the moment. So I don't want to move to a country that doesn't have freedom of speech. But I'm also a very privileged person whose material conditions have always been pretty good. and I've lived like a privileged life in a rich country. If I was a poor person living in America, paycheck to paycheck, and you said, "Come move to my country, you can have a house and healthcare and a job, but you can't criticize the government and their censorship," then that person's obviously going to weigh up the options. And that's what people need to remember to a lot of people. Why people might like governments you don't like and you have a lot of core beliefs against them is because they provide them with something often that means that they can stomach that stuff and they just get on with their lives, right? But then in other countries like the US and the UK, the way we're going at the moment is that like we're suffering because there's a tax on free speech and like free press and everything, while the minimum safety nets that we actually have are being eroded. And in America, which is one thing I can't even believe about America, like America is so cut by capitalism, the basic safety net is not even there for most people. And the healthcare one is like a massive thing for me. I'm just like, I can't believe it's not even Joe Biden doesn't even feel pressure to try and pass universal healthcare. That is how insane it is. With a majority in the House and Congress, he doesn't feel pressure to do that. He won't even talk about it. And this is something that is totally normal across not even just the developed world, across like many countries that are a lot poorer, and he can't seem to say it. So yeah, that's one thing I'd keep in mind. Like it's very easy to be critical of some countries. And like I said, I'm generally like anti-authoritarianism because if in my ideal world it wouldn't be a thing, but at the same time it's like I'm not going to shit all over Vietnam, which is only as a country what like 50 years old, nearly, is it nearly 50 or 45 years old? Um, when it's like doing good things in terms of like healthcare stuff and other things, and lots of Westerners live there and like it and everything. I'm not going to shit all over them for like not living in a multi-party free democracy. The same way, like I'm not going to let the US off the hook in terms of like for the shit stuff it does, even though apparently it's democracy. And also, like the funny thing is, if we're comparing like Vietnam to the US and stuff, the US ain't a democracy anyway. It's a two-party like oligarchy where nothing really changes between the parties. UK is heading the same area as well. All right, who's talking about stuff? Uh, wait, who's starting shit in the chat? Um, someone message me. Medicaid for poor people. Okay, thank you. Freedom to die in debt. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Christina gets all her information from videos. You can just Christina just go on your phone and type in "Is China a one-party state?" um, sorry, read more comments. Um, all right, no one's really saying it. Oh, okay. See you later, Katie. Got to go to sleep, but I'm gonna watch the rest of this tomorrow on the other channel. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate the donation as well, because they're gonna get some help. Yeah, exactly. Hi, Martin. Thanks for joining. Jimmy Dore sucks. Yep. Um, every government is terrible except Norway. I mean, not all governments are totally terrible, but I'm not gonna simp for any government. Basically, what people don't understand, like it makes me uncomfortable. Like even countries that are like a lot better, it makes me uncomfortable about like patriotism and simping for like. Not saying you're simping for them. I don't know. I'm talking about people in my head. The government is there to serve the people, and in times gone by, if you didn't do what the people wanted, they'd kill you. Like that was the threat you had because you couldn't fuck over people enough and mess with their livelihoods, or you just die. Because you should be scared of your people, but now it feels like it's like either tolerating it accepting they can't change, or like simping for it. Like, so even if you love your government and it's really good, it's there. You know, you've got to hold it to account to do the good things, the basic things it's meant to do. That's why I think someone's paid. Well, I'm a massive, you know, I disagree a lot with patriotism and shit like that, but that's sort of why, because I think it leads to like I don't know, just ignoring the problem. I like their style. Yeah, like I mean, it's better than the UK. Um, States are terrible. Yeah, I generally don't agree with like the concept of like countries and stuff. But yeah, Christina feels like a troll, like an account that was maybe made like 2 seconds ago. um, sorry, I'm just reading some comments now. All right, so I guess I'll end it here. So like I was saying to, yeah, you can catch up with this on the Kavernacle Extra hopefully later today, maybe tomorrow. I need to upload my stream from last week as well about Kojima talking about 9/11. Well, yeah, basically to end it right. So there is often like crossover with what people on like the Tulsi Jimmy Dore left will talk about. Like they'll oppose what Israel are doing. They'll oppose like NATO stuff. They'll oppose like intervention in the Middle East. They'll oppose all these things, right? And that's all good, and that's fair enough. But the problem is that the place that these guys come from is often solely about anti-intervention and solely about America. It's not about total respect and like wanting to preserve human life. It's not about being anti-war as a concept. It's generally about wasting American resources, American lives, American taxpayer money on stuff that doesn't really affect the average American. And that's why these guys can happily like not criticize Assad as much as he should be, or Putin. Why they can ignore like injustices in other situations like Kashmir or something like that. Why they can do all these things is because in general they care about the American side of it. And if that's out of like some sort of self-interest, that don't waste the money, spend it on healthcare instead, or don't waste my taxes or whatever. And that's a fair enough argument, but then at the same time, it says a lot to me that these people don't actually care about war being bad, or military conflicts being bad. And they're prepared to not call out brutal authoritarian regimes in Russia or Syria or India because their main thing is being against Western foreign policy, I guess, and Western imperialism, which again is fine, but this is why far right groups often like these guys, because if you listen to these guys and your main problem is about like the military industrial complex and the CIA and NATO, then it's a lot easier for far right groups to start brainwashing you that the reason the US does this is because Israel controls them, and there's just a short step away from that stuff, from Israel to who is actually controlling US foreign policy. And that's why the Daily Stormer will run an article about Jimmy Dore versus Ana Kasparian. Um, so that is my like final point on all this stuff. Tankies are big on TikTok. Uh, Great stream crowd. So yeah, that is everything for today, I think. And that's what my problems are with them. And I spoke about just generally, I find Jimmy Dore pretty gross person in terms of like this Ana Kasparian stuff. It seems like he's driven a lot. Obviously I can't confirm, but like his rage against women is makes me really uncomfortable. Um, his style of debating, like you wonder why no one would want to come on your stream. You're just gonna rant and rave like some drunk uncle or something. Um, so yeah, that's why I disagree with all this stuff. And yeah, if you missed this stuff, I'm gonna put it on the second channel. Hopefully, I need to start putting the second channel in the description, which I'm not doing. Anyway, thanks everyone for a good stream. Thanks to donations, the people who did. I think the people who did are gone now, but thank you anyway. And another stream on Thursday, hopefully, if I haven't got a video to do, and another video tomorrow, and one on Friday. Let's try and hit 35k by the end of the week, hopefully. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate the support as usual. And if you just in it for the streams, hopefully see you